Hello, I'm Liam Wortman. I did my project on South Korea and specifically their business communications. South Korea as a whole is a country I think most people are fairly familiar with. A very hot North and South Korea, a very hot topic in the news right now, and it has been for a while. Um, they do have some specifics. A lot of their business communication styles that differ, like their differences between here and there, are in common with most other Asian business practices. But I will get into more specifics as we go through this. So, nonverbal communication. This is something I, throughout my research, has found to be very common in Asia. A lot more nonverbal communication, kind of less direct. I get into the contextual difference too in a little bit. Um, but specifically, like they're not physically affectionate. Personal space is not strict, especially with it gets crowded there. I spent some time there. It gets very crowded, um, and like here we point a lot, but they don't. That's considered rude, and a lot of times, and there's specifics on how to point. Like here, pointing is done with all fingers, and beckoning is done with all fingers, with your palm facing the ground, which is different than we would do here. It is also considered rude to make a fist with your thumb inside your fist. Here, that's just considered unsafe if you're making a fist. But I thought that was interesting. On to contextual differences. Like I said, like in many Asian countries, very high context culture. Like especially the language itself requires context to in order to make sense. I spent some time reading it. It's not easy. Koreans also speak notably less when compared to low context cultures like the U.S. or UK. As like there's the context is always present, so they need to say less if that makes sense. Which yeah, it does. And then situational awareness is key when having a conversation with a South Korean counterpart because you need to know exactly what the situation is, and you can't just pull all of your information just off of what they say. Gift giving. This is also something very popular throughout Asian cultures, not just in the business um, world, but in personal relationships as well. Uh, it's also important how to you receive it. Like if the gift is nicely wrapped, it's important to receive it with both hands. And gift giving is an important part of a personal relationship as well. So, like if you're building relationships with other business people, or you're building a relationship with your chick you went out with, then gift giving is very important in their culture. And then, as far as their business relationships go, networking styles, I found this to be kind of interesting. I mean, it's similar here. It's very much word of mouth. Like you have to know someone who knows someone, or be the person who knows everybody, if you want to make connections and get something done. And your reputation plays a long. Like you can be a qualified, like you can have qualifications, but if you don't have a built reputation wherever you're doing business, it's going to be more difficult. And like I said, in the bottom line here, people will no longer see you as an inexperienced business partner once you get and you have a reputation. But you see you as a rather stable and experienced person, and doing business will become a lot easier the more you work in the same area. It's a very hierarchy heavy culture that comes from the influence from Chinese Confucianism. I'm probably pronouncing that really wrong. But yeah, so your reputation does carry a lot of weight, but your status does as well. Like it's very much like they don't want to be seen doing business with someone of a lower class, which is unfortunate, but that is how it works there, and it is something to be wary of when doing business there. Dress and appearance. On the Honestly, it doesn't differ that much. That's another thing I found in my research. Most Asian countries follow a lot of Western uh, fashion styles when it comes to business. Not necessarily more casual stuff, but when it comes to business, it's always like full suits. The colors get a little bit more specific when you go across the Pacific Ocean. And then for women's clothing, it heavily follows Western style, like pantsuits. That's actually the best. I'm not very well versed in that, but that's the example right there. Yeah, that's nothing super special in dress and appearance. It is of note, men are only expected to have a wedding ring and nothing else, and women are supposed to like keep it real, like what did I write? Yeah, very modest and conservative when they're dressing. Greetings in business relationships. Bowing is once again South Korean business practices relate a lot to other Asian business practices. So bowing is very important. It's not as profound as it is in Japan. It's used to a 30 to 45 degree angle. Excuse me. It is not as see, when speaking to or about someone, it's important their family name. Uh, can I back that up? Sorry about that. The restart. I'm not entirely sure how to edit this, so I hope this works out. Um, but as far as bowing goes, for a foreigner, if you're over there doing business, it is understood that it's not a common practice in most other places. So if you don't do it right or you don't do it, you usually will get away with it. Unless they know you've been there for a while, then they probably will expect you to get the bowing part down. Now to cultural identities, how women work in the workplace or in business. It's honestly not that. It's kind of probably a couple decades behind the U.S. Like women are breaking into the workforce. I fully expect to see those numbers climb in coming years, but it is still very low percentage of women of the people working in business that are actually making the decisions are women. Usually, they're restricted to either secretary positions, which are usually low paying, or it's similar family styles to like the American nuclear family, where the woman's expected to, the wife is expected to stay home and work and take care of the kids. But they are breaking into it, so it is changing slowly but surely. Legal and ethical differences and approaches there. South Korea has its civil law system to settle disputes, very much similar here. It is historically influenced by Japanese and European principles and practices, and based off their law system. Although our system was influenced by European, so it's not super far off. But recently, especially with the U.S. Having a very heavy presence there since whenever the Korean War was. I apologize, I don't know the date off the top of my head. Since there's been a very heavy U.S. presence there, since then it has been more influenced by U.S. laws. And South Korean business is heavily influenced by Confucianism, which is from a Chinese practice as well. So there's a lot of different influences going into their legal and ethical approaches. And also the Confucianism, I didn't get too heavy onto this in the hierarchy part, but it does emphasize seniority. More like not necessarily even through education authority, but mainly age, which differs a little bit from what I have written there. But younger generations are starting to divert away from that a little bit, and they're starting to be like, "Hey, I went to college. I should be able to make these decisions. You shouldn't be here just because you shouldn't make these decisions just because you've been here forever." So that is starting to change a little bit, along with the women going to the workplace. So definitely coming into modern times, a little bit behind here, but not too far off. So, conclusions and recommendations. South Korea, honestly, their economy is doing pretty well. Like, there's definitely some like ethical differences you can make. Like, younger people actually be able to do stuff more when in the workplace. But as far as like their economy is going, they're doing pretty good. Um, we all know Hyundai and Kia, and they're very successful automakers. I think they're the biggest companies there. I could be wrong, but and then also just for themselves, they've done very well. But yeah, other than then coming their influences come over here. I didn't touch on it too much, but business cards, greeting or exchanging business cards is like not a strict practice, but there's a very specific way to do it that shows a lot of respect to the other person you're taking their card from. And I think it would be interesting to see here because here it's kind of like just kind of tossing it back and forth. But like and South Korea and once again many Asian countries, you bow and you hand it to the person with two hands, and they receive it with two hands and carry it, and actually very clearly look at it before they very carefully put it in their pocket to show a lot of respect to the person's business card. And like writing on someone's business card there is considered a huge sign of disrespect. So seeing something like that over here would be interesting. But that's the only recommendations I have. Or yeah, thank you.